The ACT has been flying under the radar for quite some time now. So, what's really up with the standardized test? Is it strongly gearing up back or quietly phasing out? Welcome to Unstandardized Podcast. In today's episode, we have Andrew Taylor, the Managing Director of ACT Education Solutions, who will uncover a very important question for us. What's up with ACT exam? Good morning,
Yep.
Andrew.
Good morning, and feel free to call me Andy.
Hi, Andy. How are you? Early in the
Yeah,
morning
very well.
to bug you.
It is a little early here in
It
Phoenix,
is,
but
yes.
it's fine. And I'm getting later in the evening in India, so it's a fair compromise, I think.
Thank you. Thank you so much for agreeing to this and actually joining us. It's absolutely a delight. And we are so looking forward, our audiences are so looking forward to hear from you, everything that has been the buzz about ACT. So, we're going to talk about few things that probably kids and parents already are aware about, but I think they have a
Sure.
bit of hesitation in understanding or some clarity. I was talking with Bhushan sir as well on the same previously. So I think we can start on that. But before, I dive into the future of ACT, I was just thinking, uh, for you on a personal note, like, what drew you to the world of education and testing? And, what truly inspires you even today? Because you've been there for a long time.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. So I've been in and around education now for 25 years or so, and I think really how it started was
Hmm.
after I finished my own more traditional journey. I went to high school in the UK. I was born in Britain. I went to high school in the UK and then went to a university in England, the University of Bradford. I'm a proud alum at the University of Bradford. And then when I graduated, there wasn't a huge amount of work around.
Hmm.
I graduated in 1998. And so I actually went to work for McDonald's in the UK and then very
Oh.
quickly realized that my passion when I was
Hmm.
working there wasn't really flipping burgers. But really, my passion was working with the 16-year-old young people and moving them along. In the UK, there's a vocational program called the NVQ, National Vocational Qualifications. And
Okay.
very quickly, I became a trainer, and very quickly, I became the NVQ assessor for the region for McDonald's, and that kind of led me towards education. And then I went to work for Edexcel in the UK. I'm sure many of your listeners will know Edexcel.
Yes.
And then sort of many different jobs with them, including when they were bought by Pearson back in 2000. And then that led me about 5 years ago to ACT, having moved to the US in 2014. And I've done a whole lot of different jobs in education, from vocational education to academic education. And now, obviously, with ACT and looking after the sort of assessment piece, the transition from high school to college, which I think is really important for young people.
Absolutely. So it's been your calling probably. You realize it's through
Yeah.
McDonald's probably, but this has been your calling within.
I
No,
think so. I think so. I certainly haven't stopped doing it, which is the
definitely.
interesting
I
thing.
mean, it's such a engaging and adventurous to an extent, I think I would say is kind of a job. But I think it's fun as educators. We all would agree to that, it keeps you on your
Yeah.
toes in a fun way. So, let's start with something from the US. So, uptake to the online ACT because it turned online digital for the US in April 2025. So, are you seeing this a measurable shift towards the computer-based ACT now in the US? And if not, then what do you think could be the limitation?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about background. What change was an option? We didn't. We're not making it compulsory.
Hmm.
Now we test really three main channels. One is
Right.
international, which we're going to talk about later. So outside of the US, that's been
Yes.
digital since 2018. So we're well versed with digital in that market.
Yes.
Secondly, we work with 24 of the states and over 2,000 school districts in the US, where we use the ACT and the pre-ACT in school. So it's actually paid for by the school or by the state. And again, that's had a digital option since 2018. And this academic year, we're just finishing off right now, we'll
Right.
test well over 1.3 million students in those state and district programs, and of
Hmm.
which well over 60% are digital and have been since 2018. So what's really changed is our Saturday test, the one that you go on and register with a credit card in the US. We've added the opportunity to have a digital test, and really three main things. We want to give students the choice what works best for them. We talk to students, we talk to parents, we talk to educators a lot, and about 60% of students say they prefer a digital test. So we wanted to give them that option. Now, 40% still want paper and pencil, so we're going
Yeah.
to still give them that option. But we just want it's about options and being comfortable. We're trying
Right.
to test people's knowledge, skills, and experience. We're not trying to test whether they are whether they're anxious, whether they're worried. So
Right.
if we
Right.
can just remove any anxiety for somebody in the test, that's a good thing. So again, digital is part of that. We just want to give access. It also is really, really useful. The information we get from digital testing is really powerful. It tells us down to an individual question level, which questions are maybe a little harder, which are taking a little bit longer.
Right.
How well are you doing? So the data is really important for us, but first and foremost, it's about comfort during the test for the test taker, and that's why we want to give them the option. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think that's very true because I do remember, from my experience back in when it was always like paper-based in the US, a lot of kids
Mhm.
here in India, they actually flew to the US to take it on paper because they felt like they were more comfortable on the paper mode. And they didn't want to go for SAT back then, and they were very sure that, they want STEM and science for their various reasons. So definitely, as you said, that being comfortable with the format that you want to do is really important because then you can completely focus on the performance of the test, whatever that is, whether it's computer based or paper based. So now moving on to the fact of the whole buzz about super score and composite score, and that's where the science section comes in, and there's a lot of confusion. There are universities which are saying that a STEM is still very important, it's an integral part if you want to go for it. So how do you think having science, not having science, would give an edge or not give an edge, and the whole idea behind it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first of all, we continue to think that science is incredibly important. That a large number of ACT folks, are science graduates, are just as dedicated to STEM as everyone else. But again, it's about choice, right?
Yeah.
Not every student is trying to do a STEM degree. So what we want to do is continue to give young people choice as much as we can. Um,
Hmm.
so it's just like writing. Writing is incredibly important. In fact, we know that being able to write is one of the key, not just academic skills, but employability skills that people need to do. And we've
Hmm.
been offering writing as an option for 20, 25 years. Um,
Hmm.
so I just want to be clear, it's not about less important, it's about options and choice. So what's happening out in higher ed? Well, we're hearing lots and lots of different things. Some universities have said they will just take the scores as ACT is presenting to them. We
Hmm.
continue to see a strong vein of some universities are taking an approach which we like to call test preferred. So what they're
Hmm.
saying is that you don't absolutely require a test score for admission. However, it will really help you from a class placement perspective. Potentially, any scholarships might be linked to that. It
Yeah.
might help you. So let's see, for example, that you're hoping to go to the honors college. Now,
Right.
again, you won't be barred if you don't have a test score, but a test score gives more information and more help to your school to be able to make those other determinations, not necessarily just admissions, but placement, honors college, scholarships, etc., etc. And then
Very helpful.
thirdly, it's always good so that I would even say if you have a score and you've already been admitted, but you didn't
Hmm.
send it anyway, because what it helps do, it helps that university and those resources that are available understand where they need to be. So let's say, for example, that you've got a fantastic math score a great science score, a good English score, but maybe your reading's just a little less. That's good
Yeah.
information for tutors and others to know so they can prepare your academic journey. But what are we hearing from universities? So some are saying test preferred, some are saying as is. We've seen some examples where they are simply saying, send us everything, and then we will make a holistic approach, but you don't have to have a test. And then I've seen some examples where they've said, for Boston University might be a good example. Boston University has said, please make sure you take the science and we will recalculate your composite score based on the old formula. So based on the 4 sections added together divided by 4 versus what will happen in September, which is just the English, math, and reading sections. A number of universities have done that for many, many years. They've calculated their own scores. For example, we don't issue an English language arts score, ELA score, unless you take the option of doing writing. Some
Right.
universities will calculate their own ELA score just based on English and reading. That's not a score we issue, but obviously they've been given your English score and your reading score, so they're going to do something with that. So we believe in providing as much data as we can and doing the best that we can. To give you some advice and some insights on what's happening behind the scenes, um,
Absolutely.
so we talked about the states that we work with, the
Yeah.
24 states. So
Yeah.
in those contracts, the state decides whether you take science or not. So the student doesn't, the state decides. And so far, all the vast majority of those states that have given us a decision, because they don't move until next year, but the ones that have given us a decision have said they're going to keep science. And you talked about April we did the first time we did a beta test to see how this was going, and about 30,000 students registered for that, and about 75% of them decided to take science. So if we move away from the official advice to what does Andy think, what I would
Yeah.
say is that, look, you never know where you're going to end up. Very few people end up going to that one school they wanted to go to when they were 14. You should always aim for that, and we should always hope for our dream school. But things change. You learn more about yourself as you go through your secondary education and start moving towards higher education. So you never know. Somewhere down the line may want a science score. So what we would suggest is, if you are taking a strategy where you think you're going to take the ACT more than once, do it at least once with a science score. So at least you've got a score, you've got one ready to go. So if any time anyone needs it for anything, maybe it's for a scholarship, maybe it's for an extracurricular program, maybe it's for a placement into a class that you really want to get to. If you've done it and you've got a score, at least you've got that ready to go. So that would be my personal advice. But the ACT advice is, look, check the websites of the institutions you want to go to. And don't forget, it might not be at the whole institution, but the individual college or the individual program that you want to attend may have
Yeah.
some different requirements. So make sure that you're checking the program, not just the big institution. I hope that makes sense.
That's actually very insightful, because this has been so much of a confusion, in the sense that they have made it optional. I think it's good not to take. Our composite would be better. But when I hear you, I think it makes a lot of sense that it's a very holistic approach, both from application point of view and also very personally in the journey of a student. Because as you said, you never know where you're going to reach. And at given point you might feel like, oh, I should have done science, it would have just elevated my application or score, but you didn't do it back then, and now there's no way out. So this is, I think, a very good advice, that if and most of the students, to my experience, do take it more than once, at least twice. Twice is a very, very generous number. I think even Bhushan would also agree. That's something that students take a lot. So it's always good to take science for sure, if you're going for a STEM base. Otherwise, definitely once. I mean, that's really insightful. And how about the super score thing? So they would be doing it, not doing it,
Yeah, so
previous to next now.
yeah, so very simply, so we've got I'm going to say this because obviously I believe in our folks, but I generally think that we have the world's best psychometricians at ACT. And in fact, just a little bit of history for you and the audience, that The reason we're based in Iowa City, and Iowa City is not a very big place at all. Not very big at all, and especially for those that live in some of the big urban mega cities in India, Iowa City is a really small little city. And the reason we're there is that the founders, who very much invented modern psychometrics 65 years ago, all went to the University of Iowa. And the University of Iowa continues to be one of the best universities in the world for psychometrics. So that's the reason we're in Iowa City. And as I was saying, we have some of the world's best psychometricians, and the work that they've done in the last 3 years to get us ready for this point is amazing. And what they've done is, beyond any shadow of a doubt, they have proved psychometrically and with data and with real live information that although they are not identical, the legacy, the current ACT and this ACT we're having after some small changes are interchangeable and interusable. So what that means is that if a student has, you took an example of a student taking 2 attempts. I'm going to take that. So let's say that just last weekend we had an ACT test. Let's say that you took a test last weekend,
Yeah.
and that would have been in the old model. So your composite score would have been made up of 4 sections added together, divided by 4: English,
Hmm.
math, reading, and science. Let's say you now take it again in September or October. That's the new model. Your new composite score is only made up of your best score in English across both attempts, math across both attempts, and reading across both attempts. Now, because you would have done one or more of the old type and one or more of the new type, your super score is a mix of all of those, right?
Right.
But to make sure that you get the best score possible, if you are one of the students that has both a score of the legacy ACT and the new ACT, we're going to ensure that even if you had a better score with science, that composite score will be available for you to send. So if you've
Oh,
done all old style, so you stopped testing last year, nothing to
right.
worry about. We're not going to change your score. You're good. If you're doing all new style, starting in September, that's just a new style, nothing to worry about. But if
Right.
you're on that transition point, we're
Yeah.
going to make sure that the best score is available for you to send.
That's really comforting because actually we have a lot of students here in India and with Yotella who are in this phase, who have done ACT this year, and because their school exams or everything, they're now going to be taking ACT in September or October. Basically, that's the time we have short breaks here. So
Sure.
I think they had these questions a lot, would it be like bad if I do this in the old style? Should I just delete? Things again, it's a lot of confusion, but I'm so glad that it's really a respite to hear. Now, coming about anything that is streamlining for ACT internationally, other than this anything new that maybe Andy says.
Yeah, no, I want to be really clear that these changes are not dramatic. They're not a complete evolution of the ACT. They're
Hmm.
just small changes to make it better and make it more comfortable for students going forward. So what you'll start seeing this year is not in September, but later in the year. What you'll start seeing is that we're going to just change not the knowledge you need. So we're not changing the curriculum. We're not changing the background knowledge, but we're just going to, in our math section particularly, but in English and reading as well, we're just going to change the number of questions downwards. So you will have more time per question and less time overall, and just answer fewer questions. And that will be happening sort of towards the end of the calendar year. But apart from that, we'll continue to work and try and improve our platform. Again, the platform isn't incredibly important for
Right.
students as long as it works properly. But what we can do is just help with that text anxiety by just making small changes. So we get requests for changes all the time, and we just continue to work through those and make that a better experience for everybody. But the real big changes that students will see later in the year is the reduction in the total number of questions, but that means you're going to get more time per question. We think that's really important. And again, our psychometricians have made sure that it's balanced and fair and so on and so forth. So that's really important to us. But apart from that, you know, science being optional is really the big change that we're going to see. You having the opportunity to take science or not take science, and that's available today. Registration opened a couple of weeks ago. In fact, 2 weeks ago on Monday, so on the 9th. And yeah, we're going to continue to offer you know, that product as hard as we can. We also, something else I was want really interesting for folks. Last week, if you go onto our ACT test prep pages, we just launched the new version of the Preparing for the ACT. This is an absolutely free ebook, which has got exact details on what you should be studying to prepare for the ACT. So all the different specific sections of English, math, reading, and science, and writing, if you're going to do writing and science optional. And in there, included in there, is a whole free practice test. So anyone can go on and download that from our website. And I think that's really useful and can really help you prepare. So that's the one exciting thing that's been happening in the last 7 days, I would say.
Absolutely. There were like two questions I was stemming from that, but I think you somewhere answered both. First was the platform, because I was actually looking forward if there will be any changes on the platform, because that was something I was hearing from my students. And second question that you ultimately answered, if you can elaborate on, was any kind of new resources. I did visit the website, not just last week, but yeah, a while ago, and I saw that there were one section, timed and untimed. They were there with the new version, but something that I'm hearing out is, do we have more prep material for ACT? Because it's changing soon, and people just want more respite on the fact that, oh, there are more things to learn from, and nothing beats like an official material, no publication, nothing.
That's
So
right. So yeah, let's start about that first of all. So no big there are some background changes to the platform, but they won't impact the experience for the student. You know, as you can imagine, we're always making changes to the
Mm,
technology stack that supports our platform,
right.
and we'll continue making some of those. But no what we call student facing changes. There's some changes for some of the administrators, so some of the folks in the background that are helping support, but nothing really for students on the experience level. We continue to use to partner, and very proud of our partnership with PSI. And for those that are interested, PSI is now part of the ETS group. So huge resources, huge support, really stable platform. The most important thing for us is that the platform works, and for the student. There's nothing worse than having something go wrong during an exam. So the stability is incredibly important for us, and really is the first thing that we think about. So no huge changes coming on the platform. We'll stick with that one. And then secondly, resources, such a good question, such a fair question. So a couple of things that we've done recently. I've just talked about preparing for the enhanced ACT. So that was launched last week. And I think that's really important, that you really understand what the questions, or how many questions you're going to have to answer, how to be ready, etc., etc. Secondly, a few months ago now, we launched a Quizlet. So this is where you can answer individual, we call them items. A question's called an item in our business, but you can
Right.
answer individual items, and just practice at them, because often it's not just practicing, a whole test, but practicing individual questions, and getting comfortable with them. So we made that again available for free. If you go to ACT Test Prep, there's lots of information on there. And then thirdly, and this isn't free, but I'm going to mention it anyway. We have for many years had a great partnership with a couple of organizations I want to talk about. The first is with Wiley. We publish something called the OG, the original guide, the big red book, some people call it. And the
Yes.
big red book, the
That.
new edition, the new edition of the big red book has 4 full assessments in it in the new model. So if you want to go through and you can look at it. And then finally, we also have a partnership with Kaplan. I'm sure most people know who Kaplan are.
Yeah, yes.
Big organization. Interesting enough, they're the largest privately owned education company in the world. There you go. And we have, one of the products that we're very proud of is the self-paced prep product. And that, again, has been updated to include all of the new format, all of the new tests, and so on and so forth. So the other thing is we're absolutely dedicated to provide more free material. So we're working right now on a number of partnerships, a number of features, a number of new not products because they're not free, but because they're free, but a number of new features, I think is the best word. A number of new features that will help that. We are aware that students are hungry for practice material. And to your point, which was greatly made, official practice material is always the best, right? So we're aware that's out there. We'll continue to try and do more, but often there are IP licensing issues and some other reasons. So we'll continue to work in the background and get through those and release as much as you can, as much as we can. I want to just make one thing really clear though, because of that psychometric work we did in creating the enhanced, the sort of up-to-date version that we're releasing. Any practice, any experience, any scores that you've had on existing materials will still be valid. So, your performance on the existing ACT is an absolutely excellent indicator on a performance on the enhanced ACT and vice versa. So any materials that you have today, so, if you have a slightly older edition of the Big Red Book, the original guide, the tests are still valuable. They still want to tell you how prepared you are. If you've got, something a little, it's fine. The ACT materials from the current test to the enhanced test and vice versa are indicators of success against each other. So don't think you need to throw out everything. If you've got some materials, you've been prepping already, those materials still being. If you've got preparing for the ACT from a couple of years ago, take the test in that, because it will still be valuable and it will still show you how prepared, because both tests test the same curriculum, the same areas of knowledge. So they're both valuable. So I just want to say, don't think you need to throw everything away and start again. Again, it's not a complete change in the test. It's just a slight update and going forward, but we're testing the same things. So don't be silly and don't throw away your old test prep material.
Absolutely. And when you talk about the OG Red Book and the Kaplan, I remember big fat books in my drawer.
Over 1,000 pages. That's right.
They
Yeah.
could be weights for strength training, but they were so important. The way they guided, I remember the tests, paid or free. I think it was incredible material. And even, to agree on that note, that's what something I have been telling the students here in India and in Chitala also, that the material that was essentially in all the past papers that ACD has given out, or anything that is out there, is actually very relevant. I was going through the material, the new one that is on the website. I really loved one thing about the new update is the reading section. That rather than completely cutting out the passages to like a para or two, it's a decent sized passage where contextual clues still have that relevance, which I feel in different exams have really reduced now, but the
That's
time
right.
is more. So I remember my students mostly struggling in the reading section because it was just 35 minutes and 40 questions with four passages and everything, and sometimes they were paired. Now I think it's going to give due relaxed time, but keeping the essence of the reading section that should be there. Rather, I would say, as a verbal trainer, also that that's very very important. And I'm so glad with this update we didn't miss out this thing in ACT. We made it the right way for ACT reading for sure. That
Yeah,
was
no, I appreciate that.
that was
I appreciate that. I think it's really important, to your point, and just to sort of plus one to what you've said. I think it's really important that we remember what the ACT is trying to achieve. So the ACT was originally created 65 years ago as an alternative to the SAT. The SAT had been created, it's older, but it had been created very much as an IQ test. So
right.
measuring your intelligent quotient. And in fact, they changed the SAT
We
about
did.
15 years ago to be more like the ACT. The
Yeah.
ACT was about really one simple thing. It was saying, are you academically ready for the
Hmm.
first year of an undergraduate degree? And that was measured through specific classes in an American system, yes, but these days the level of education in the first year in a degree is pretty global,
Yeah.
and it was measured against specific classes that you're going to take. So it was saying, are you academically ready to succeed in those classes? We've done a whole plethora of research since. One which probably our biggest ever piece of research was with 1.3 million students over 7 years. And we measured students starting in high school, had them take the ACT, and then measured them all the way through college. And what we showed is that if you hit the college and career readiness benchmarks, and they're available on our website, lots of information. In fact, the whole study is available on our website. But if you hit those benchmarks, you are significantly more likely to not only get a passing grade in those first year college classes, but also get a B or higher. So it's really, its aim is to make sure that you are ready for those college classes. So that's really what we do. So what we do is we measure your readiness for those college classes, not your intelligence, not your IQ, not your EQ, and these things are really important as well. But what we're
Right.
saying is that if you get a score, and it changes depending on which college class you're talking about and which component, but let's say it's usually about 22, 23. Let's just say if
Hmm.
you score a 22 or 23, your likelihood of getting a B or above in those college classes in the first year is significantly higher. So that's
Right.
our job. Our job is to make sure you are ready for college,
Hmm.
not you already know what you're going to get taught in college. No, we're making sure you're ready for that learning experience, and we take that pretty seriously, as you can imagine.
Yes, that's true. Just one of the questions about since we talked a bit about SAT, so it went digital, and now of course ACT has always been digital for international
Hmm.
students, and
Hmm.
that has been also helping students in a lot of ways, keeping it digital. Do you think that, and this is something I mean, both if you can also answer, that the shift toward be more towards ACT now? I mean, do we see that? Because it's sort of got, a bit hazy a couple of years ago. But with this change, because personally speaking, I think it's a very relevant change. It's very integral. It's good. I think it should be something which would change the whole sphere of it, because it for students it is more balanced now. It's shorter. You can choose if at all you want to, and still keeping the essence. So, as you mentioned previously, that nothing is redundant that you have done before. It still stays relevant. So if you have ever prepared, took a break, but you want to come back, it's not
That's
like,
right.
oh, it's just all, you should vanish and you should start from scratch. You can rely whether on the understanding or the prep material or even the websites from before, and just modify based on
That's right.
how it's updating. So that's just I want to know about. Do you think the shift should be major now, considering the updates?
Great question, and Bhushan, I'll let you jump in after I've just shared a couple of thoughts. I would say that and obviously we work for ACT, so we're always going to say that ACT is a better product. What I would say is this, and we are always very, very honest about this.
Hmm.
Not every model there's no single model that works for everybody, right? But
Right.
what we've tried to do is we've tried to find the testing model that reduces anxiety as much as possible, that gives everyone the best chance to show the best of themselves. And we've done that with what we believe is right for the majority of people, not everybody. So what I would say is this, and I hope you don't mind being this frank and this direct. We
Absolutely.
would always suggest take both practice tests. ACT and SAT both have free practice tests available that will score. Take both and see which you're most comfortable with. We work really closely together with College Board, and we have a chart that is accepted by every university across the world, not just in the US. We have that compares SAT scores and ACT scores, and that's used globally. And we work actually together with College Board to publish that. So it's a joint publication. Take both tests, see which you're most comfortable with, and see which works for you. I'm not going to tell you my opinion. I'm going to tell you the opinion of the states. The majority of people that take a state a college admission test paid for by the state,
Hmm.
more people take ACT than SAT. And you know, that would be my simple answer, is that, you know, third parties choose ACT about 2 to 1 against than SAT. So that would be my statement. Bhushan, from an Indian perspective, anything to add?
Yes, Andy, and Sanskriti. So that's a very good, insight that Andy has given us. And we have been interacting with a lot of schools, students, and then counselors in the last couple of years. One thing that we have noticed is, like there is a buzz that they want to give the ACT exam, right? Earlier, probably they were not that much aware, or maybe they were not getting the right guidance or the direction. But now the resources are available. The test centers in India are expanding. They all are available. And then for Indian students, like getting a high score is more important. So there are a
Right.
lot of blogs on linear testing and how you get high scores. So
Hmm.
all that ecosystem is getting developed in India. So as rightly mentioned, I mean globally also you will find almost like 33%, I guess, is the number wherein students take both the test outside the US. I
Hmm.
mean outside the US globally, that's the thing. So, definitely. And as mentioned by Andy, academically, if you are prepared for the ACT, so, don't get panicked that this is a new ACT. This is not a new ACT. Academically, correct me, Andy, if I'm wrong. Academically, most of the things remain the same. The changes are minimalistic when it comes academically. Now
That's
you
right.
have the option. No,
Hmm.
now you have the option. If you don't go for the science section, then don't go for it, right?
Hmm.
You have a shorter test now, right? You have less number of questions that you need to answer, and you are getting more time per question, right? And as you mentioned about the reading section also, the passage length has reduced, so you get more time to think on how to write and answer the particular prompt. So these changes are definitely going to impact, and counselors, schools, the students, and their teachers, they all have been kind of very welcoming, and they understand what are the benefits that the students are going to get out of it. Yeah.
So I'll come to Andy with the next question, but before that, as Bhushan, you mentioned about that's true. That I think there's one more thing I would like to add, other than the understanding of it or the changes of it. It's also the so-called the peers, like what they are doing. You just want to do that without even understanding that what's actually good for you. There could be two friends,
Hmm.
two people, even siblings I've seen, who have done different tests and they have excelled in both separately, individually. So that is also, I think, the kind of mindset that educators and prep organizations need to work on, as Andy rightly said and honestly said. Take both and then thrive on what would make sense for you, not
That's
what
right.
makes sense for your sibling or friend or your neighbor, because oh, this one did score like a 1550, I should also do it. Maybe you're made for ACT, maybe the way ACT tests and rigors, that's something you will thrive from, because I've
That's
considered
right.
ACT to be a very smart and fast test. Like, you have to be really on your toes, but if you know the hacks, I think it's a very fun test. I'll be honest about that. But coming to the Indian system, here more about that. Uh, there is something that I always hear from students. Particularly, I'll talk about a few places, Delhi being one of those. Schools are very, probably positively accepting this, which is very, very important. One core system change I'm thinking, and giving it more like, not feedback, but I don't know how to really put it, but the thing is, ACT test centers, do you think it would evolve into schools gradually in time? Because I think that also plays a bit of role. Students taking exams in schools versus students taking exam in test centers, the psyche, the ambience, I think it matters. That's a personal opinion. And I think that is one thing positive with schools. They know the conduct of it. Students are a little more comfortable when they are in, maybe it's a different school, maybe it's not their school, but it's a school, you know, the
Hmm.
place is
Hmm.
same. So do you think that would be something we would want to look forward to, or something like, we would be looking into as change? Maybe not now, but in future?
Bushan, I mean, look, I'm
Yeah,
going to brag on Bushan for a second if I can. So
definitely.
I don't just think I know, because he's been doing it. So
That's
Bushan has been
Lovely.
for the last year, Bushan has been doing
Thank
exactly
you.
that. We're opening more test centers, and the vast, in fact, all of those new test centers we're opening are in schools where the students are. You
That's
know,
great.
I'll give you a great example. I was lucky enough to be in India a few months ago, and it was the week that we were opening a new test center with the Amity schools in Delhi, and you've got the nail on the head, Sanskriti. So not only do you think, but the research shows us that one of the biggest factors for reducing test anxiety is safety and comfort. So if we think about Maslow's triangle, right?
Mm.
So, you
Right.
know, students need to feel safe. Students need to feel secure. They need to make sure they've had breakfast. That's really important as well. They need to make sure they're well hydrated. And
Right.
you know what? That's safe and secure in a Maslow hierarchical way. Being in a school, your school is the safest place of all for the majority of students. But you're right. If it can't be your school, another school-like environment is very safe. So that is absolutely part of our strategy. And Bushan's been leading on that, not just in Delhi, but in a number of places across. And also it's about access, and I don't mean any sort of I mean specifically getting to the test center. So if the test center is the other side of the NCR, or if you're in Gurgaon and the test center's in Noida, that's a really long way to go. So
Yeah.
we need to make sure that we've got the test centers in the right places, and the schools are often in the right places because that's where students attend. So what you've just described has been our strategy for the last 12 months, and exactly what Bushan's been doing. Bushan, I hope you don't mind, but I just wanted to brag on you a little bit because you've been leading that work.
Yeah. Yes, Andy. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, thank you so much for that, and and thank you, Sanskrit, for asking this question also. So, we have realized it when we started interacting with the schools, with the counselors, and with the students. So, this feedback we have received earlier also, right? The same thing that you have mentioned right now. So, we have been gradually shifting towards schools. There are a lot of international schools in India who are highly keen on putting up an ACT test center within their campus. Right now, there are some 50 to anywhere between 50 to 55 schools that we are in discussion with, those who want to put up an ACT test center in their campus, and they are spread across India. We are kind of getting discussions from all parts of India. Like, we are in discussion with a school in Chandigarh, one is in Amritsar. There are a lot of schools in Mumbai. So Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Coimbatore, specifically the southern part like Mumbai and Hyderabad, they are multiple queries regarding opening up more test centers. In Delhi also, we are having a lot of discussions about with a lot of schools in the NCR region. And that you rightly mentioned, as Andy also rightly mentioned, that ambience and that feeling and that comfort and that security and that anxiety levels, all those are very important for providing that kind of an environment. So that is a part of our strategy. We are working towards it. We have increased the number of test centers in schools in the last 1 year, right? And we're still working on it. So in the upcoming years, you will see a lot more test centers in the schools.
I mean, that's such a great, great news and such a respite, because this is something, as there are a lot of things which I love about AC. This was something, I had a little ick about that, there should be more school centers, because, this is something coming directly from, teenagers, my students, that, ma'am, I wish it was a school. And I'm sure that would change. That would be probably, I'm just saying it as as an honest opinion, that probably can drive a lot of students alone as a factor to take ACT. Of course, the updates and material, it has been great and it is great, but this sense of comfort, because we started this conversation about ACT giving that comfort and giving that ease, not to hinder any kind of a thing other than the concept and application which it stands for. This would be a great positive change for ACT, and I'm keenly looking forward to it. One of my last questions to Andy, and then probably we'll wrap it up. We did talk about anxiety and comfort, and that brings me to my one of the last questions is test accommodations.
Mhm.
There been any changes? I know ACT is very
No.
generous when it comes to accommodations, but any changes in there?
No, great question. We continue to want to support accommodations and obviously do that in the right way, and be fair as we can be. Such a difficult word, fair, right? Because it means something different to every person. But we want to, again, we're trying to test your knowledge and understanding. And if you require, what we call a relatively simple accommodation, like additional time, which we still deliver through the computer test, all the way to very complicated accommodations. I want to share a story if I can.
Sure.
Last year we did the first international accommodation of tactile diagrams. So what tactile diagrams are, if somebody's unable to, from some condition they may have, they're unable to process a diagram, we actually build a model of the diagram, and then they're able to hold it and have it, and we send it to them.
Wow.
So we had our first international accommodation for a tactile diagram. As
Oh
you
my
can imagine, that's incredibly expensive to do, but it's the right thing to do. So we're going to continue doing it. And we were really proud that we were able to offer that to an international student for the first time. There are some accommodations like tactile diagrams, but maybe a more common one would be something like a Braille paper, where we're just not able to do that on the computer yet. I mean, there is starting to become technology for Braille, reading and so on and so forth, but we're not quite there yet. So those will still require what we call special testing. So, it's a different event. It's done uniquely for you, but the vast majority of accommodations now are dealt with on the same day, are dealt with on that Saturday, and are dealt with through the process. So no, again, no changes happening for the student and their families, but we're just going to try and be the only thing we're going to try and be a little bit more efficient. So we know sometimes it can take just a little bit longer to get an accommodated registration through the system, and we're going to do our best to just be a little bit more efficient on that. And go forward, but we continue to be really proud of our partnership with the schools and other test centers that we work with, and we rely on them for a lot of this, and we just, without them there would be no tests, without them there'd be no proctors, there'd be no accommodated rooms, etc. So no huge changes for accommodations, but we'll continue to try and make it more efficient and make it as fair as we can. Again, that word again, very difficult word, but I'm going to use it. As fair as we can.
I understand. And that was very generous and very, I think, lovely that you made this whole tactile diagram accommodation.
Really cool. Yeah.
Really cool. I do remember one of my kids, and that was the time when things were going digital and everybody was in the buzz for SAT and everything. And, he came and we were just thinking, probably it's the change and, whatnot, things have been very fluctuating. So he said, I want to do ACT only. And he took a gap year after his school. And I said, why? And he was phenomenal. So he had been to the US for a lot of, fellowships, amazing
Uh-huh.
profile. And he said, no, the kind of comfort, the kind of accommodations that ACT does give. So he had issues with understanding the text or comprehending them. So he would need a scribe with him. But that was something was only offered with ACT. And he had to do a standardized test because that was the requirement of the application. and ACT was the only test that was providing that. And he said, I won't budge. Whatever they do, whatever changes they do, I'm going to stick to it. Because they have been very nice and kind, and they do understand the real accommodations, which is not just time, which is much beyond that, as you
That's right.
mentioned rightly. So yes, that is true, and I'm so glad that we're still standing on that. Finally, Andy and Bhushan, anything you want to say to our audiences, which are parents and students who are just looking forward to a lot of things? I will come one by one from Andy to Bhushan. You want to say, impart your knowledge, what Andy says?
Yeah, I would say, I think that the thing that we talked about in the very first, or the very first couple of questions, whether you're the student themselves, whether you're a proud parent of a student, we like to use the term champion. The student has many champions, whether that's a parent, a sibling, an uncle, an auntie, whatever that may be, or even others that aren't in the family, teachers, other educators, people that work, that are in their lives for other reasons, sports professionals, whatever it may be. We all have an end goal, an end in mind. There might be a specific school that you want to get to. There might be a specific program at a number of schools, whatever it may be. But there are options available to you. And those options are global. 25, 30 years ago, it was incredibly difficult to go to another country to take school. And now there are so many other options available. And you know what? There are amazing options available in India. Whether that's with a public school, a private school, and it could be just as exciting to go from Delhi to Bangalore than it is to go from Bangalore to the US or wherever else. So we would always say, research your options, keep your options open. And that's really our aim. Our aim at ACT is to give you as many options as we can. So whether it's options during testing, whether it's options after testing, whether it's options before testing. So it's about options, but keep your mind open. And remember two things: that your time post high school is part of the journey. It's not the end. It's not even the beginning of the end. It's really the end of the beginning. And what you need to do is make sure that you're doing the best thing that you can, but you're also enjoying it and remembering, because they're some of the best memories that we make during that time. So pick what's right for you, pick what's right for your family, and enjoy it. It's a journey and it's good fun. Bhushan, anything to add?
Yeah, so thank you, Andy, so much. That's a really great guidance for the youngsters out there who are looking forward for the ACT and maybe luckily going to the US for their higher education. Just one thing I would like to say, and a very short thing. Guys, dear students, parents, counselors, just don't get confused by the term that there would be changes in the ACT, as mentioned earlier in this call. Also, academically, changes are minimalistic. Most of the things remain the same. If you're prepared for the older ACT, you're very good for the new ACT also. Just remember, the changes are in terms of making the test shorter. So you have to sit for less duration, providing you with science optionality, right? So you can take the science or not take the science. You have less questions and you get more time per question. Rest, whatever wishes and guidance has been given, and just listen to it one more time if once you have the recording, what Andy has mentioned to you, and that is going to help you throughout your career. That's it from my side. Yeah.
Really, thank you. Thank you so much, Andy and Bhushan. I think you shared some very insightful experiences, stories. And thank you, Andy, for being so honest on so many questions.
No
And
problem.
really, really, I'm sure for the audiences, this would have cleared out a lot of air around ACT, what's happening and what's not, because it's coming directly from the best of the people who can answer these questions. And I'm really grateful that you took time out for us. And we really enjoyed this podcast and the conversations around ACT and a lot of other things. And we wish to see you again probably sometime. And
Great. Looking forward to it.
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, both of you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Cynthia.
Andy, for being
Thank you.
great evening, and Ali.
Thank you both, and have a wonderful evening, and I'll have a great day. Thank you. Speak
Yes, have
soon.
a great
Bye-bye.
day. Bye.
Bye-bye.